What a day of chess it was, and this game in particular was quite brilliant. On the white side, Radoslav Wojciech of Poland, and his opponent, the very strong World Championship challenger, I'm sure you know, Fabiano Caruana. And this really blew old concepts out of the water, and it had an amazing idea that really blew a lot of the commentators' minds and my mind, which we're going to come on to a little bit later. But remember to like and to subscribe to this channel as well. And let's see this idea. So Wojciech started with c4, but the game quickly goes into a King's Indian defense. And this is already quite interesting, because after d4, g6, this is an opening that Fabiano rarely plays. He doesn't. I can't remember the last time he did this. He often goes to a more solid setup, but he clearly had something in mind. So what did he have in mind? Well, Wojciech goes into a main line position, e4. This is the main line King's Indian defense, and White grabs this central control with three very nice pawns, but Black aims to attack that center. And the typical way that Black plays this opening, based on the games of Bobby Fischer and Garry Kasparov, two ex-brilliant world champions who are certainly two of the most aggressive world champions around, they like to play e5 and later f5. I've actually done a series on this on the Chess.com premium videos. Get that little plug in there. But okay, castles is very normal, and now bishop e2 is the main move, and we see this e5 move now play. Black has to do something in the center of the board. White castles, again the main line. At some point White can obviously push on with a pawn, which the computer loves, but this allows Black the option of going f5 after moving the knight, and this way White can't open up the center of the board, so Black gets very decent chances on the king side. But after castles we see the first sort of new idea, bishop g4. Other ideas include the knight coming to d7 or c6, but bishop g4 is already a bit peculiar, and you don't normally play this way as Black. Now it'd be interesting to see what Fabiano had up his sleeve against the move d5 here, which again closes the position up, but we'll have to wait and see for that one. Instead, bishop to e3, a very normal move which I think a lot of players would play. Developing the last piece, controlling the center, was done. And now Fabiano continues his unique plan. He gives his bishop up for this knight, and again a lot of people think, well, why is he doing this? He's spent two moves to get rid of a bishop, his developed piece, for a knight. Normally the bishop is considered better than a knight. I don't think Magnus would want to give up a bishop this easily. Magnus loves his bishops, but because you often get a closed structure in the King's Indian defense, maybe it's okay having the knight. But no, again, he doesn't try to close the position down by tempting White to play d5. Let's say knight here, d5. When the position becomes closed to the knight, he opens it up more. So he keeps breaking these rules. E takes d4. Now Wojciech simply recaptures with a bishop. This is a Maroczy bind setup. White has very nice control on the centre with these pawns here, and he has more space. But Black can aim to attack these pawns later on. Knight c6, attacking the bishop. This bishop doesn't want to be lost, because then Black's bishop becomes very strong. This has been called the King's Indian defense bishop by numerous players historically. Players who play this opening as Black love that bishop. This is relevant. The bishop drops back to e3, and now rook e8, increasing some pressure on the central pawn. Queen d2, connecting the rooks, and one of White's ideas might be to try and swap off that strong bishop. And now knight to d7. This knight was just an obstruction, and you've got to think of ways to reroute your pieces, and this is a typical maneuver. The knight tries to find a better square. It wasn't really doing much attacking that pawn, very easy for White to defend that. And the knight comes around either to c5 or e5, one of these squares, where it can try to find something better to do. For example, here it attacks the bishop, attacks the pawn, and on c5 we can even go a5. This is an idea that David Bronstein used to play often in these positions. The other point of this sequence is that the bishop on g7 is now released. Rook a d1, a nice centralizing move. White clearly hasn't done anything wrong here. And now a decision which is just mind-blowing. It really is. Bishop takes c3. Now, honestly, if this is the kind of move that someone I was teaching played, I would be like, you can't play this move. This is a beginner's move. You give up your best piece, the piece that's defending your king. You give up your King's Indian defense bishop, the bishop that every strong player holds onto when they play this opening. How can you play such a bad positional move? I wouldn't be this scathing, but you get the idea. I wouldn't really want to be like, to my pupils. But I'd be like, you can't do this. You can't give up your strong piece. Your king is too weak. But one of the best players in the world, Fabiano, plays this move. I mean, it really is unbelievable. I mean, other people who commentated on this move at the time were saying, you're just not supposed to do this. Black does everything in the opening that he's not supposed to do, giving up two bishops. The bishops, giving away the bishop pair. But later on, he gets everything that Black's supposed to get in the King's Indian defense, a great attack. One very strong player, Ivan Sokolov, Grandmaster, one of the top 10 players in the world, also commentated when he saw this, if this decision is good, I need to learn chess again. He mentioned in pre-computer times, they would throw you out of any half-decent chess club for playing such a move. In Russia, if you went to a Russian school of chess, where they teach you these, I guess, I don't know, I've never been, stringent rules, you play a move like this, you're out the door. So it's an unbelievably brilliant concept in my eyes. And let's just see what the idea is. Well, obviously, White takes this back. And now, first of all, Black offers the exchange of queens. So one thing's clear. Black can't allow White to get control of this diagonal. If White's able, for example, to maneuver the bishop to b2 with the queen there, that would be just game over. Black also can't let White advance easily with these pawns because the king is so weak. But what Black can try to do is use these knights to just attack the two pawns in the center of the board. And this is what Fabiano's going to do. I mean, it's brilliant. It's breaking all concepts, all preconceived concepts. It's a new way of playing in a lot of respects. And, you know, ideas like this, they really strike me because you're taught concepts, then someone breaks them and they play a brilliant game. And the thing with this concept is it reminds me of like a great musician. The best musicians, in order to break the rules, they must understand how to play all, you know, in a classical manner. They must understand all the rules in order to bend them. This is what Fabiano's doing. He's bending the rules with computer preparation. And again, it's computers who have shown that such a risky move is playable. Let's move on though. Okay, so White obviously wants to keep the queens on the board because Black's king is weak. And he wants to keep the queens on the board to try and do something to that king. The knight now comes to c5. And this is the idea, pressurizing. White defends that pawn. White's hoping eventually he can just get his bishop to this diagonal. Queen e6, keeping those pawns under pressure. And it suddenly becomes clear that White's going to lose one of those pawns. I mean, this must have been so hard for Wojciech with the white pieces to play against. He's in prep. But I think now he makes the wrong decision. He gives up his c4 pawn. Now, when you've got the bishops, you want to keep lines open. And I think I would have preferred to give up the other pawn. Something like b4, knight takes e4. Why do I want to give up a central pawn rather than my c pawn? Because I want to use the e file combined with my bishops. At some point, you can see I have this open line. I want to combine it, open up the center of the board. Another idea is that in a couple of moves' time, I want to try to kick that knight away. In the game, this knight got a very nice square on e5. You can't move it here because you lose that piece. And the knight would have to be sidetracked in this position. And this to me seems like a much more positive way for White to play. But let's go back to the game. I mean, rook to e1. Now Fabiano grabs the pawn. And the game continues with some standard maneuvering. Black wants to keep his queen on this diagonal. But now we see Wojciech getting his bishop to the key diagonal. But look how, with this brilliant move, expanding on the king side, Black stubs out this bishop and takes over the dark squares on the kingside for his knights. Look how strong black's knights become. Knight e5. This knight is very strong. And the only way that white can really do anything in his position is to get rid of that knight. White needs to try and get f4 in, but black is controlling that square. This is a key idea. It's very hard to get f4 in. For example, after h4, black's still pushing on the king side, queen c1, aiming for f4. Another excellent move, g5, controlling f4, meaning that knight is stronger than the bishop. And now white definitely drifts. I think, you know, it's a difficult position for white already. Maybe something like b4 is better. Bishop b5 seems like a bit of a shot in the dark there. You're kind of like, ugh, where's the light switch kind of move? Give me the light switch. I can't find it. Where am I? Which I can understand because he's been hit by this brilliant idea of Fabiano's. The rook moves up and now rook e3, trying to control some squares, but black just increases the pressure. Queen g6, getting out of the pin. The bishop comes back. Again, white just trying to control some squares here, but black now moves his last piece into the game. Queen c2. And now the other knight starts to angle for the king side. That knight has done its job there, so it maneuvers its way back in. Now, I don't like f3 because you want to give your bishop some possibilities, at least getting into f5. So maybe h3 is a better move. It keeps that hope alive. As soon as you play f3, as Wojciech does now, it gives us a hook as black. g4 is going to be a hook to open up the position. But it also makes that bishop a lot worse. And after knight to f4, just look at those knights. Who said that bishops are stronger than knights? Rewriting the rule book here. The bishop drops back. And now c6, why not? Trying to push in the center, using the extra pawn. There's no rush to do this, but eventually black does now open up the center. If black needs to win, he needs to take some more risks. Opening up the center is risky because you've given your opponent a bishop pair. Rules-wise, you don't want to open up the center. And now white falls apart with g3. But this is the only kind of active move he's got to try and do something on the king side. If he doesn't play this move, I'm not sure what I can recommend. It's already pretty horrible because there's g4 and h3 going. Something like queen takes a2 just looks far too slow after g4 when black is just ready to kill. So g3 played, and now after takes, black continues to open up the center of the board, and there's one final mistake here. White's last chance was to take the pawn, but after knight h5, it looks to me that white's still in trouble. The other knight can come to g4, there's a rook coming to f6, maybe even f3 is weak. But Wojciech, so confused by this whole concept, decides to grab the knight on f4. This does win a piece, and now we see that black's used his two knights, and now black gives up both of his knights. It just has some real poetry to the whole proceedings. King g2, pawn takes f3. The so-called Irish pawns here, but they're doing a great job of really opening up that white king. The queens are exchanged. Maybe this is what Wojciech was hoping, that his king would be a lot safer here. But now, after f2, Fabiano has calculated brilliantly. He realizes that this pawn, well, these pawns should I say, but mainly the pawn on f2 is stronger than the bishop. There's an immediate threat. Rook to g1 check. So the bishop has to move in order to cover that one. But now the final tactic, knight c4. And this is a beautiful finish. White now is really forced to take this knight. So Fabiano's given up the second knight just to allow his other rook into e1. And there's nothing now that white can do. Moving the bishop is bad because rook e1 comes anyway. If you lose your piece, you're going to be like, oh, I don't know, a mountain of pawns down. And after, well, let's see what happens. Just rook e1 check, and Wojciech now resigns. The king would have to move to h2, and the simple move here, actually just rook takes here, is going to lead to a winning position. For example, rook takes f4. There's a nice move now in rook to d2, guarding the pawn, attacking the bishop, and if the bishop moves, we have f1 queen releasing a check here. And if bishop takes here, well, you can see that black's just clearly a lot of material up. So I think this shocking idea in the opening, and I do just want to show this again, bishop takes c3. It's a real rule breaker. Brilliant play by Fabiano, and his team of helpers deserves credit for finding this move. Obviously a lot of computer help there, but in order to play this you have to be very brave, because you'll know you're going against hundreds of years of chess education. And moves like this excite me because it shows that there's still more in chess. Chess hasn't been solved. There's much more out there that we can explore over the 64 squares, and as you see, Fabiano's doing that. This propels him into a very good position in the tournament, and I think his little bit of time off, which he's had recently, has proven to be a great bit of time off. Please like and subscribe to this video. I'll be back again with more gaming days. Thank you for now.